Regular council meeting for August 14th, 2023. Could we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Audrey, you're right.
Okay, still all set. Okay, is there any conflicts of interest this evening? Okay, hearing none, the roll call vote. Dale Macklin?
Yep.
Jerry Guerian?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Here.
Joseph Gravel?
Yep.
Jeff West?
Here.
Lee Trahan?
Here.
And Peter Drappa?
Here.
Approval of the minutes from the previous meeting, July 10th, 2023.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? There being none, could we get a vote, please?
Sure, Dale Macklin?
Yes.
Jerry Guerian?
Yes.
Ray Karen?
Yes.
Joseph Gravel?
Yes.
Jeff West?
Yes.
Lee Trahan?
Yes.
Peter Drappa?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, under communications, we have the Spirit of America.
The 2023 Winslow, Maine Spirit of America Foundation tribute honors Wally LaFountain for commendable community service. A resolution providing for recognition of Wally LaFountain. Be it resolved by the Town Council of the Town of Winslow as follows. Whereas Mr. LaFountain has served the Winslow community for many years, extending well after his retirement, and whereas Mr. LaFountain was a teacher at Winslow High School from 1958 to 1969, leaving in 1971 to work for the Department of Education in Augusta, and whereas Mr. LaFountain has served the community as head coach of Winslow High School football and wrestling, co-founder of the Pine Tree Conference, past president of the Kennebec Athletic Conference, and head official umpire for Winslow Pop Warner and Little League, along with many more coaching and board positions in the community. And whereas Mr. LaFountain coached Winslow football for 11 seasons and developed the wrestling program for Winslow High School, retiring from coaching in 2015. And whereas Mr. LaFountain also served in the U.S. Army during World War II in the European theater, earning a Bronze Star. He graduated from Springfield College in 1950, was named the 1940s All-Decade Football Player, and earned his master's degree from the University of Maine in 1970 and Certificate of Advanced Studies at the University of Maine in 1974. Now, therefore, be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be appropriately framed and presented to Wally LaFountain for appropriate display. Town Council, Winslow, Maine.
Wally, if you want to stay, you can.
I've just been outvoted.
I know the feeling.
Thanks, Coach. You wouldn't take that from us in high school. Thanks, Dave.
And there's a CMP presentation regarding relocation of power lines.
Where'd she go?
Good evening, I'm Ben Shepard. I work as a director of transmission line projects at Central Maine Power. I'm here to talk about tonight a project that CMP has to rebuild one of our existing power lines from Winslow and goes down to Augusta. So what I'll talk about tonight are some current facts about this particular transmission line, which you can see a map of on the right here. I'll talk about the history of the transmission line. It's been around for quite a while. We'll discuss the need to upgrade this particular transmission line, as well as what it's going to look like after we rebuild this line. And then toward the end, and this is why we really wanted to talk to the town of Winslow, we're evaluating a couple of routes to have the line go through Winslow along a couple of our existing right-of-ways that we already have. Then we'll leave some time for questions for the town council. And then toward the very end, we have some contact information for our public outreach. So this particular transmission line, we call it Section 1. That's what we call our transmission lines at Central Maine Power. We call them sections. This is a 23-mile long line. As I said, it starts in Winslow and it goes south. Generally, it starts going to the east, goes a little bit into Benton, and then turns south, goes into Vassalboro and ends in Augusta. So it's a 34,500 volt transmission line. Shorthand, we call it 34.5 kilovolts or kV. So if you think about the voltages that CMP generally operates in our system, the distribution lines, these are the lines you see go down the street or the road. They feed people's houses and businesses. Those distribution lines generally operate at 12,000 volts or 12 kV. And then once we start working up to our transmission lines, these are the lines that generally go across country. They feed substations. They can connect power plants, things like that. We have three voltages. Our lowest one is 34,500 volts or 34.5 kV. So this is the voltage of the line I'm talking about tonight. And then the other two voltages, we have 115,000 volts or 115 kV. And then the highest is 345,000 or 345 kV. So if I were to equate that to something maybe people would understand, generally, a 34.5 kV line I think of as like a local road. Could be like Route 100 or Route 137. Once we get up to 115 kV, I think of that as like Route 1 or Route 201. And then a 345 kV line is like a main turnpike of transmission lines. So like I said, this is the lowest voltage of transmission line that we're talking about here. It connects three different substations. We have Blair Road down in Augusta, McCoy's in Vassalboro, and then there's a South China substation, which isn't on the map, but is fed by another transmission line that comes from the McCoy substation in Vassalboro. So that serves about 7,700 customers, this particular transmission line. There are a total of 632 wood pole structures on the line. The right-of-way is mostly cross-country. As I mentioned, most of our transmission lines go cross-country. They go through the woods, go through fields. But about 1.5 miles of this is roadside in Augusta and Vassalboro. So it could look like a distribution line. And that part of the line has what we call a distribution underbuild. So in addition to the transmission line at the top of the poles, there's also another power line, a distribution line that feeds people's houses along the way. And these wood poles that are on Section 1 here, those average about 40 feet tall, as it is today. Some are a little bit shorter, some could be taller. So this line was originally built in 1920, so it's pretty old. It's over 100 years old. In 2016, CMP was doing an assessment of our transmission system. We have about 3,000 miles of transmission line all over the state, so that's a lot of assets. But we're looking at our transmission system. You know, what state is it in? Are there any areas where we have asset condition concerns in our particular transmission system? Any part of it that needs some kind of attention? Looking at Okay, is the line, does it have enough structural capability to handle all the weather, all the ice and the wind that we can get in the state of Maine? Ensuring really that, we have a transmission system that can reliably serve our customers. So in 2018, we determined that Section 1, the transmission line I'm talking about tonight, needs attention. So we began the process of starting a project to rebuild this line. Now, when we do a project, it's not something we just snap our fingers and we have equipment that shows up and we start work right away. To do a project like this, it can take many years. There's a lot of design, engineering work, permitting. It could be local permitting, state permitting, like from the Department of Environmental Protection, federal permitting, mainly the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. So those are a lot of permits that we have to work through a lot of times to do our work. Sometimes we have to buy real estate. Maybe we're trying to establish a corridor or set up access to a transmission line. And then we work really hard to do public outreach so people in the community are aware of this project and we don't surprise anybody. In 2019, there was a law that was passed in the state that required the Maine Public Utilities Commission, that's the entity that really governs CMP at the state level. This law requires the Maine Public Utilities Commission, otherwise known as the MPUC, to approve any transmission line project that's worth more than $5 million, which this project qualifies for. So being above that threshold, all projects have to go through what's called a non-wires alternative review, or NWA review, where it's the Office of the Public Advocate, that's another state agency, leads doing that review, and they typically look at trying to put forth other projects to eliminate the need to having to do a transmission line project. They could propose things like having to put in large batteries or put in solar, or maybe work with larger customers in the area to curtail their electrical load so that we don't have to do our project. So in 2022, back in July of last year, CMP applied with the Public Utilities Commission for approval. It's called a Certificate for Public Convenience and Necessity. And CMP has required in these cases notified the affected towns and abutters in August of last year. So CMP, along with the Office of the Public Advocate, when they were doing their NWA analysis, determined that there was no NWA that could be done in a cost-effective way to mitigate the need to rebuild Section 1. So that leads us to this year. We're back in June of this year. The Public Utilities Commission issued their approval for the project. So the current line, when we did our assessment a few years ago, there's 93 structures out of the roughly 630 that failed visual inspection. That we used a drone back in 2020 to do that inspection. Found things like decayed poles, decayed cross arms, broken insulators, things of that nature. And then the line, the entire line from here to Augusta, was modeled in a computer using 3D software. And we used that to put all of these different loadings, could be ice loadings, wind loadings. These are things that are established by national engineering standards and codes that we have to follow. But I found that 307 out of the 632 structures on the line were structurally inadequate. Another issue we have with the line is that there's insufficient working clearances. So that means if we were to have a crew go out and fix something on the line, a lot of times we'll try to leave the line energized so that we don't interrupt our service to customers. But there's not enough room once linemen get up on some of these wood pole structures for them to be able to work safely in those conditions. The conductors are aging. They are original to when the line was built in 1920, so the conductors are over 100 years old. There are insulator issues, so the insulators, which that's how the conductors attach themselves to these wood pole structures. They're generally made of porcelain. They can crack and break over time, and a lot of them are many decades old. And there's no static wire on the line. So what a static wire is it's a wire that we string above the power line going from one pole to another that's designed to catch any sort of lightning strikes that occur. So if a lightning strike were to strike a conductor, you're probably going to see a power outage. If it strikes the static wire, then that lightning strike should go to earth and there shouldn't be any impact to us serving customers. So the new line is going to be completely rebuilt, new poles, new wire. We're going to use steel poles by and large on this line. The exception of that is in Augusta and Vassalboro, where the line is roadside for about 1.5 miles. We'll use wood poles in those locations. The typical height of these poles are going to be 60 feet tall, as opposed to the average height of 40 feet today. And the line will still operate at the same voltage of 34.5 kV. And as I said earlier, it takes us a lot of time to do these projects. There's a lot of things that we have to work through as a company to be able to put these projects forth, go out to bid for construction, buy materials.
Excuse me, sir.
Yep, sure.
Peter? That's time.
It is.
If somebody-
We limit presentations to 10 minutes, sir.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
You want to make a motion to give him an, if you
Make a
can.
motion, we let him finish his presentation.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Vote of the council,
Second.
show of hands.
Show of hands.
All right, I'll try to step on it then.
Okay.
Last thing I'll mention on this slide is we would start construction in January 2025 and wrap up by the end of 2025. As I mentioned earlier, we're considering a couple routes to bring the line through Winslow. So on the right here is a map. The white line is the current route of Section 1. So one option is to rebuild in that current right-of-way. The other option, too, is the yellow line. We have another 34 kV line, Section 40, and we're considering rebuilding the line along Section 40. So that would trim about 1 mile off the total length of Section 1. We're looking very hard at doing that because having one less mile of line, it's less exposure to us on the system, so there's improved reliability, and we're hoping that would save some cost on the project with the upfront construction costs and maintenance costs over time. So we're still analyzing this. It's probably a conclusion we're not going to come to before the end of the year as far as which route we're going to take. We need to survey these routes, look for any sort of environmental issues such as wetlands. We need to take a look to see, these are existing corridors, but we want to confirm what real estate rights we have. And we want to be able to work through the engineering process so that we have a really good handle of what the cost is to go with either route. So like I said, we'll probably determine this around the end of the year. We'll report back our findings to the Maine Public Utilities Commission, and then we'll notify any abutters along the way, depending upon which route we determine we're going to go with. The last thing I'll mention on this slide, so I have the website up here for the Public Utilities Commission case where Section 1 was approved. There's a docket number, so if one were to go to that website and plug in that case number right there, they'll find all of the past documentation about the Section 1 case at the PUC and any future documentation that gets filed. These are the neighborhoods, or at least the roads, going south to north as far as if we were to follow the Section 40 corridor, the shorter one, that's where we'd be traveling past with the line. Again, we haven't made a determination on which route we're going to go with yet. But like I said, we're going to go through some engineering. We're going to research what permits we need, determine what we have for existing real estate rights. And then the picture on the right is if we followed Section 40, we'd have 2 transmission lines in that corridor, Section 40, which is there today, and Section 1. That's about what it would look like. We'd use a very compact type of construction called spacer cable to be able to fit inside the existing corridor. And that's all I have for the presentation. Are there any questions? I think that's up to the town council.
Go ahead, sir.
I mean, it takes money to be able to operate and upgrade the grid, and there's a ton of work out there that we have to do.
Go ahead, Ray.
If I might, through the chair, there's no widening of the path, is there?
No, that's not our intent to buy wider right-of-way. I think what people would notice on a project like this is over the years, trees and other vegetation can grow into the corridor. So say if we have like 100-foot wide right-of-way, maybe it grows in to be 80 or 90 feet wide. So when we do a project like this, we would work to widen the corridor back out to what we actually have real estate rights for. And that's to be able to maintain the reliability of the line. So if we have a storm, we don't have trees that are constantly coming in contact with the line.
Now, seems though whatever route you pick are both decayed, some are 100 years old. Do you plan on redoing even the lines, whatever route you don't use because of the aging infrastructure?
So the shorter route, section 40, I don't know the age of that line, but I don't think it's as old as section 1. So my guess is the condition of that line is probably a little bit better than section 1.
And the last question, the poles right now are 60 feet high, they remain at 60 feet high, or are they 40 going to 60?
They're generally on average 40 today, going to an average of 60 with the project here.
Question, if I may, through the chair.
Go ahead.
These new upgraded poles that'll be roughly 60 feet high, and you said in the presentation that they were gonna be, majority of them were gonna be metal poles instead of wood poles?
Steel poles, yes.
Steel poles. Is there any kind of sound or anything emitting from these poles that would interfere or disturb the residents in the neighborhoods?
Generally, at this voltage, for a 34.5 kV line, that's not a concern. If we were building like a 345 kV line, which is our highest voltage, that becomes more of a concern where we have to engineer some things to mitigate that.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just concerned about, any neighbors living right abutting these right-of-ways, if there would be any kind of impact on the residents with the new upgraded poles and system.
Is there another question over here?
Thank you.
Jeff, did you have one? No? Dale?
Right now, based on what you know right now, do you have any thoughts of taking people's land who's not being used right now by CMP?
We don't foresee doing that because we're generally working within our existing rights of way. Now, there are some cases where maybe we have to upgrade those rights to give us the ability to do this particular project. Sometimes we have a type of real estate right called pole rights, where we literally have the rights to put a pole in a particular place on the face of the earth. Generally, when we have transmission lines, we like to have like an established corridor with a width that's established either through easement or fee ownership. So our first step would be if we have to do that on this project, we would work with the landowners to come up with some kind of agreement, some kind of transaction to be able to do that.
So there's a possibility you'll be asking for increased easements over someone's front lawn.
I think the case where that would occur is if we have those pole rights, which I think we still need to get a handle on how much of that we actually have along the line.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah,
Question, if you dissolve utility line 1, do those poles and lines come down? If you're gonna join them with the other one? No.
Where we're doing the reroute?
Right.
Yeah, so if we were to follow section 40, we would take down the existing section 1. I think we would still retain the corridor
Right.
as CMP, but yeah, we would take the transmission line out of there.
Lee?
one additional question, if I may. With these additional heights, the extra 20 feet on these poles, does CMP anticipate needing different equipment or different access with these higher poles?
Not necessarily. I mean, we could have to get like maybe a larger bucket vehicle in there to be able to get up to those taller structures. You know, a lot of times in our transmission lines, especially if we do maintenance, you know, this is the type of stuff that we do. If there's something that breaks on the line, which we're rebuilding the line, so hopefully it doesn't break anytime soon. But if something like that were to happen out there, generally you probably use like a tracked bucket machine. And it's going to depend upon, you know, whatever we either have on hand or we can get from a contractor. But
Okay.
the difference between working on a pole that's 40 or 60 feet tall, I think most people wouldn't really notice the difference as far as our work methods and our equipment.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Thank
I
you,
am.
sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a Jensen Bard invitation to the 2023 Municipal Client Seminar. I did include that in the packet. If anyone does want to go to that, if they wanted to contact myself or Erica, I'm sure we can get you enrolled in that class. Okay. Boards and committees appointments, we do have one. Peter Newkirk has asked to be on the planning board.
So move. Second?
Discussion?
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drappa.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay. Reports of committees and commissions. Town managers report.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the public, esteemed counselors, Attorney Lee. I'm going to try to keep it brief here because that was very valuable time spent with CMP, so I'll try not to take up a whole lot of extra time. In July, we did have quite a bit of staff news. We were able to fill 3 key positions. Christopher Lyons is our new code enforcement officer. He did come to us without his certifications, but he has already taken his LPI class and is testing for his LPI right now. That's the one you need right away when you're set out on your own. And then he has a year to get the remainder of his certifications. He's feeling pretty good about those. And he's been doing a great job. He's been working with Amos, who unfortunately left us as of last week. It's the second time he's left us that I haven't been in town to be able to wish him well. But he was able to spend several weeks working with Christopher, get him up to speed on Winslow, and it's been a really huge benefit to have Amos during the transition, so I'm very thankful for that. It says in my report that he was leaving on the 17th. He did change that date and left as of last Thursday on the 11th, or on the 10th, I'm sorry. We also interviewed for the position of tax collector, codes and assessing assistant. We had 4 qualified candidates. Vanessa Cody was the top candidate, and she should be starting with us on the 22nd of the month. So really ready to get her going because that means I get Katie back. So I do want to thank Katie Philbrick for filling in during the interim between when Audra stepped up to the town clerk position and now when we're hiring the new person. So I very much appreciate her being willing to do that. I know it hasn't always been the most fun job for her just because of the added duties and the demands of the planning board, which are fairly high. It's not easy when you also don't have a full-time code officer. On July 25th, we did hold the selection process for the public safety director. Our hiring panel was 5 interviewers. Town manager generally selects the committees for someone who's going to be their direct report. The 3 who were not affiliated with the town were selected for their expertise and for their objectivity. So those would be Jared Mills, who was the assistant city manager and police chief in Augusta. Jared does know the applicants, but only on a professional level. They don't hang out together, socialize together. He works with both of them professionally, was very objective in his comments. Susan Lassard is the town manager in Bucksport. She was chosen for her expertise in public safety departments. She has managed over 2 of them, and she actually implemented the one that's in Bucksport right now. She doesn't know anybody who was interviewing, but she had some very good insight into the answers that were given during the interview as to what's going to be most helpful to us in filling this position. And last was Timothy Beals. He was chosen for 2 reasons. We try to get a Winslow resident on these committees, so he fills that role, but he also has the perspective of the EMS portion of public safety. Both candidates did really, really well. I want to emphasize that. Either one of them could have done this job. What made Director McDade stand out above the other candidate was his answers about community. He really has a strong commitment to Winslow as a community and sees himself as part of the town as a whole, not just part of the public safety department. he was the only one who said anything about understanding that our town is primarily made up of elderly residents, or a large portion of it is elderly residents, and we need to be very mindful of our spending because they are on fixed incomes. So, again, either one would have done a great job. The rest of the committee members were allowed to speak before I spoke. I didn't want to influence anyone's decision, but the decision was unanimous. Neither my vote nor Councilor Drapo's were needed at the end. The other three came up with their answers on their own and recommended that we hire McDade. If anyone does have any further discussion they want to have on this appointment, though, you're welcome to call me at the town office and make an appointment, and we can discuss it further. I want to congratulate all three of these individuals and let you know we're still seeking truck drivers. So if anyone knows CDL holders who might want a truck driver position, we do still have some of those open. In project news, we did get our application in for the Clean Water State Revolving Funds application through the Municipal Bond Bank to cover the Chaffee Brook pump station. That was the $6.8 million in borrowing that is not covered by the congressional earmark funds or by the CWSRF grant. We have to get this funding in place before we can start bidding out Phase 2. Phase 1 is set. It starts this fall. We've got about a 2-week window in November when we can actually do the river crossing, and that's on track. And again, the requirement for this project is because we've got an undersized pipe flowing across the river. We also have no redundancy, so if it fails, we have raw sewage running into the river. So this is a pretty critical project for environmental reasons, and DEP has been, they had actually given us a deadline of December 31st of 2021 to have this completed, and we're obviously a year and a half behind at this point, so it's a very important project. We also received notice from Senator Collins and Senator King that they have added our $3 million request for the Sunset Heights Sewer Project to the Senate Appropriations Bill. So that is a major hurdle to get over. That project is going to take 5 years plus probably, and last estimate we had is probably the grand total will run upwards of $14 million. And of course, the longer we wait, the more it costs. But this is a good-sized chunk of that money. So the fact that it's on the appropriations bill means it just has to get through the actual budget process. And I say just, but we all know with how Washington works, that might not be as easy as it sounds. But I do want to thank both senators for their continued support of our infrastructure initiatives here in Winslow, because those monies mean a great deal to our taxpayers to have that taken off your backs. Cushman Road Stormwater Project is on track to begin in August. And that's the one that we received the MIAF grant funding of $2.38 million for, and that one's almost completely covered. The environmental study for the old Winslow Junior High is, it's nearing completion. They have completed all of the in-building components and are working on the underground assessment. We do have a quote that's on the agenda this evening to board up the building so we can start with the decommissioning, and we'll know more about what it will cost to actually demolish the building once we get the final engineering study. Taconic Bridge project, as of today, has moved into the single lane of traffic phase, so you cannot get across the river into Waterville from Winslow. You have to go up to the Carter Memorial Bridge, or some people may end up going to Fairfield Benton, crossing that bridge, but the posted detour is down to Carter Memorial. So that's already in place as of today, and will stay in place for the majority of the rest of the project. So I know it's not fun, I know nobody likes it, but it's a project that has to be done. Again, I want to remind everyone that citizen concerns regarding this project, this is not a Town of Winslow or a City of Waterville project. Concerns should be directed to Robin Lanfear at MDOT, and I have posted his information online, but if you can't find it, I will be happy to provide that to anyone, or my staff can provide it to you if you've got concerns you want to pass on. We've also been passing on any complaints that we receive. And that's all I have for the month of July. Thank you.
Just one thing, Erica, if Judy's not here. Has Judy given you any more time frame on when tax bills might be ready?
Commitment date was the 11th, so she should have those to us within the week.
Okay.
Any other department heads? Paul? No.
Motion to accept the reports?
Second?
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drappa.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I would like to make a motion to suspend the rules, to add an item to the agenda that is not on the agenda, and to take that item out of order so that we may vote tonight on the resolution. Audra, would you like to read that resolution?
Yes. A resolution, it will be resolved that the town manager, Erica LaCroix, is in consultation with William A. Lee, is authorized to employ an independent firm to investigate and make a report to the town on the allegations made by Councilor Aquarian of violations of the Maine's open meeting law by council members at a cost not to exceed $15,000.
So moved?
Second?
Is there any discussion on that?
What's that? We need a roll call.
We need discussion first, I think.
Discussion?
No discussion? Okay, Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
I'll abstain.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 with 1 abstention. And do we need a motion to
Now we need a
approve?
motion to
A motion to
adopt that resolution.
So moved.
Second?
And now there's discussion.
Discussion?
And any member of the public can speak for 3 minutes on this issue.
I just have a question, can I just say this from here? I just wondered, Fran Hudson, if you could clarify where the investigators are coming from, that's all. You hire them from,
Inside the state of Maine, there are several law firms, typically in the southern part of the state, that are large enough that they actually have departments that conduct these types of investigations. There'll be 2 or 3 attorneys in that particular section of the law firm, and we would be talking with these firms and then employing one of them to conduct this investigation. So completely separate from anybody
from
connected
the
to the town.
town? Yes, thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay. Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
Abstain.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 with 1 abstention.
Okay. we're on to public comment.
Yes, public comment.
At this time, anybody from the audience can get up and speak about anything to do, whatever they want to talk about that's not on the agenda.
I do have one that was via
Yep.
email.
Yep. We'll go from the audience first, and then you can read that one.
That works?
Anyone?
Adam Lint, live on the Abbott Road. Couple of concerns I had for the town. As a government entity or a government site, isn't Facebook, even though it's a platform, if it's a government page, isn't it considered censorship for somebody of the town to stop comments on things on that page due to them not wanting discussions or any sort of comment on things? Is it legal to shut off comments for the town or any government official to censor the public's voice?
I'm going to direct that question to Erica, do you want to start, or should Bill?
I think I have addressed this personally with Mr. Lint on the phone. There have only been 2 posts on which comments have been completely suspended. The first one was the post regarding the Director McDade's appointment. Those comments ended up being terminated on advice of counsel based on the nature of the comments that were being made being defamatory. If I continue to allow those comments, those could result in the director actually filing suit against the town for allowing his character and his reputation to be defamed. The other one was the notice that we put out with the town's official statement on the article that came out on Friday regarding the issue we just discussed with the resolution. That was a statement only. It is not it's no different than your governor or any other official saying, we are not taking questions at this time, this is just our official statement. I'm not going to have the town employees trying to field those questions. Additionally, Facebook is not the medium to conduct town business. Facebook is for the dissemination of information. The town is not required to have a Facebook page. We do have it because it's a way to get more information out to more people. Otherwise, we would be with just the website, but people have to go specifically to the website to get information off of there. But as far as a back and forth, if people have concerns that they want to raise, Facebook is not the correct medium.
It is
You
a
call-
medium, though. It's open to the public, and it,
Let her finish, then you can go, okay?
okay. Yeah.
No, you're good.
The town is not required to entertain any comments at all. We could shut them off permanently. It's not a discussion medium, not in terms of official business. It is a information dissemination medium, and that's how it should be used. We do have mediums for everybody to voice their concerns. You're using one of them right now, and this is the primary one that you should be using, because then everybody
One
sees
that I
it.
can use. There's more than I can use.
You can also call to make appointments with myself or any one of the council members to discuss issues. But hashing them out over Facebook is ineffective. It generally does not result in resolution of anything.
It allows public comment, and you, as a government and as a town organization, you shouldn't be able to silence the public just because you don't want to hear from our
We're not
comments.
silencing the public. You have official avenues with which to
But that
put
is
in
an
your
official
comments.
avenue.
And your counselors do not have access to that Facebook page other than as just a regular citizen. So these issues that you want to get to the town to have considered, your counselors don't even see them most of the time when they're on that Facebook page,
So
that-
why block it then?
because it's not necessarily about them.
But I'm talking legality-wise. Maybe you can chime in a little bit. Is it legal for them to suspend comment from the public?
For clarification, when Erica referred to consulted with counsel, I was not that counsel, and I've had no involvement in this particular issue.
Okay.
And I would say that I'd need to know a little bit more about it before I would start making an opinion on it right now.
And I would ask you to please look into it for us and see if we can figure out if this is legal or if it's just being done because they don't want us to comment on things.
I hear your request, but any direction I get would have to come from the council.
All right, I guess that's all I'm going to get. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Is this open forum?
Yes, it's public comment.
Sure. I'm a little bit better prepared this time. Oh, take it back. I'm not prepared. I want to reiterate, I'm not well-versed in public speaking. I saw on your website that the proposed mill rate is 22.56. Did I read that correctly? What is the proposed mill rate?
That was last year's proposed mill rate. This year, we don't have the mill rate yet
Why not?
because the commitment date was on Friday. So she won't have the final compilations done until probably this week or next.
Okay. I just want to remind the council, as a resident, every entity that could go up on their rates have gone up. My water went up, sewer, electricity, heat, gas, groceries, healthcare, internet, cable, cell phone, just to name a few. Not to mention, if I go hunting, I pay a tax. If I go fishing, I pay a tax. I pay a chemical tax when I buy a product, a cleaning product. I pay a snack tax, a food tax, income tax, a federal tax, state excise tax, a registration tax. I have a professional license, I pay a tax. I pay a marriage license tax, a dog license tax, and I have a 50-year-old rowboat that I pay a tax on. These are just a few of the taxes that we pay. Sorry, I get a little nervous. When I'm passionate about something, I think I speak for behalf of all the people here. Our incomes have not gone up. Yet all of these entities and all of these fees have gone up. It's just not sustainable. I don't know how this council expects people to survive month to month when our disposable income is like nothing. I really want you to consider that when you propose that new mill rate. With that said, I'm hearing a rumor that this council wants a new town office building because of the mold that's in the current building. I want to make sure I'm hearing the rumor correctly. Is a new town office building on your radar? And how do you propose that gets paid?
Is that a question?
Yes.
Okay. We have put a committee together to look into the future needs and uses of this town. To build a new municipal building next year, the year after, even within 5 years now. We're looking to the future. This council, contrary to popular belief, is doing their job. Instead of having to deal with this at year 7 or year 8, and we have a problem. So to answer your question directly, not in the near future.
Okay, great. I'm glad you put an end to that rumor. My next question is, last time I was here, I said my husband was an accountant. And as an accountant, he goes through a lot of audits with his business every single year. His biggest audit that he goes through every single year is a financial audit. Does this council go through a financial audit through an outside entity? If so, by whom? If not, why not?
Yes, 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 and yes.
Okay, great.
And every year. Who do we use now for an audit?
We were with RKO for many, many, many years. They dropped us the year before last, so now we are with Eric Neto, who is from Nicholson, Michaud and Neto in Waterville. I'm sorry, I get the names backwards, but those are the three partners, so
Okay.
they perform the independent single audit.
Great. That's good to hear. That'll put a stop to
your
some of the
time is up,
rumors
ma'am.
that's going around.
Do you have anything real quick? Your time is up.
No, I'm sorry, that's all I wanted to say, and I want to reiterate on the mill rate because
The
you
mill
look at
rate
what
is a
we're paying.
mathematical calculation.
Yes,
And as soon as Judy has it figured out, it will be released.
great.
In the perfect world, nobody's taxes should go up unless they were underassessed because of the reassessment. Other than the budget increase that we voted to take this year. So,
I understand what you're saying, but bottom line is, I think I speak for many of the residents here, you can't bleed a rock. If we don't have the income to pay that, we don't have it. You're going to be seeing a lot of for sale signs.
again, wait to see your tax bill.
I will wait, and
Then
I will
we'll-
be
then
back
we'll do
next
it.
month. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ma'am, what was your name?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I didn't catch it, I'm sorry.
Doris LeBranch, and I live on Getchell Lane.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Taking so long to get up here.
No worries.
I'm 85. In my other life, I could get from home plate to first base in 4 seconds, but
That's a matter of opinion. I was
now it takes me 4 minutes to get from the bedroom to the bathroom. And sometimes I don't make it. My concern is spending. We all know that gasoline is going right up to $4 a gallon again. And spending, as the lady mentioned, it's a real problem for a lot of people. I have a question, because I'm a little slow on the uptick here, as you can see. We seem to have spent, if I did the math correctly, maybe $100,000 on hiring a new safety coordinator or counselor, administrator, whatever you call them. I'm not saying anything against the gentleman that has the job. I've been chosen for the job. I'm concerned that for $100,000, we hired the same guy that we already had. Please explain that to me.
Erica,
My
can you-
next question is,
Okay.
does he also get a town vehicle with that job, or the use of a town vehicle? If so, that's probably, what, another $40,000, $50,000? We already had the guy working for us for less than that. If you could explain that, I'd appreciate it. What
Yeah,
you're saying,
can you-
slow on the uptick.
No, you're gonna stand there and wait for the explanation, or?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, my name is Ray Weed, I'm from Spruce Ridge, out on, Trailer Park, out on the Augusta Road.
Okay, we hired a public safety director.
Yeah.
In this whole transition, we've saved over $60,000 in doing so. We're not paying him an extra $100,000 over the budget. We didn't budget an extra
We hired
$100,000.
somebody to take his place.
What's that?
And have we hired somebody to take his place?
No,
No.
no.
So this was basically a reorganization.
Oh.
So what we had before was separate police and separate fire with a police chief and a fire chief, okay? So when our fire chief left us, the idea was to go to a public safety department. So the police chief became the public safety director. We still already had a deputy fire chief, and we still have a deputy fire chief. We did not have the deputy police chief, but in order to not have it cost any more money, we did not add the additional patrolman that was slated for this year. So we still have a net savings, okay? The amount of money that our public safety director is being paid above his police chief salary is $2,000, and that includes the cost of living adjustment we put in for all employees this year. So his wage rate went up minimally in terms of the budget. Yes, there is a vehicle because the public safety director, just like the police chief, has a vehicle. We did not have to buy additional vehicles.
But he had a vehicle.
He had a vehicle. So
Same
it's the
vehicle.
same number of vehicles that we have had, and since we didn't add another patrol vehicle, we haven't had another vehicle at the other end.
But the
So,
bottom line is you have one less patrol vehicle.
no. The chief has always had a vehicle, and that was never on patrol.
Yeah, but now he has it for his job.
He's
Correct?
still a licensed law enforcement officer, and he will still be acting in a capacity if needed. It's no different than what we had before. We have the same number of cruisers, we don't have any less on patrol. We always had one assigned to the lieutenant, we had one assigned to the chief. Now we've got one assigned to the public safety director and one assigned to the deputy chief. The lieutenant has moved back to a patrol capacity and uses a patrol vehicle, not a vehicle that's assigned to him at all times.
So the new safety person doesn't get any more money than what he was already getting.
He got a slight bump, but it's very slight.
$2,000.
Yeah,
And that was a cost of living increase he'd have got anyway.
Plus the use of a car.
He had a
he
car.
already had it.
He already had
That
it.
comes out of the fleet, does it not?
No.
No,
Doesn't come out of the fleet, he's a patrol officer then?
If he's needed to act in that capacity, just like before, your police chief would not normally go out and run patrol, but if they're needed to, because we're short-staffed or there's a major incident, then he still can.
Okay, thank you.
anyone else?
I do have this one to read.
Okay, yeah, Audra has one to read.
So this is from Ronald Poulin on Maple Ridge Road. My question is for Erica. Blocking comments on an official town Facebook page is not good conflict resolution management. It certainly should never be government policy. Well aware you offered to meet citizens in person to discuss. In order for Winslow residents, myself included, to better understand your reasoning, my question is by what quote-unquote color of authority are you acting on with your total draconian blockage of all citizen online comments?
I believe you responded to him, didn't you?
I did.
You want to respond again?
Well, it's mostly the same thing I said to
She already
Mr. Wendt.
responded to that question. so.
I have responded to all of it. I would just put out there that if I truly was going to block comments that were unfavorable to myself or the town, I wouldn't have put this one in the reading tonight. It would be very easy to me say with the 150 emails I came into this morning that I never saw it when it came in this afternoon. But that's not what we're here for. Again, the only time that we're limiting those comments was when they became nasty, when they basically became a situation where there was slander or libel in there. And I'm sorry, but I'm sure all of you would like to have a boss that actually stuck up for you when stuff like this happens in the public eye. This is a good employee. He does not deserve the rhetoric that was going on. And you also need to understand, for anybody in the law enforcement arena, and it's all my employees, but especially in the law enforcement arena, your reputation is everything. And the fact that an employee has never had a complaint at the Attorney General's office and has a completely spotless record, that you can talk to just about any other police chief in this state and find out that he has a good reputation. Allowing people, because they're angry that we didn't choose the person that they wanted, or we chose the person that they didn't want, and therefore to use Facebook as an avenue to basically just be angry, that's not something I'm going to allow. The advice of counsel I got was from our HR attorney, and I also got the advice from MMA, Maine Municipal Association. This is not something that you should allow to continue on social media. We have ways for people to respond that they are not happy with this decision. We're here tonight. This is exactly where we should be conducting that business, or by contacting your counselor or myself and making an appointment. It's still public. No one's ability to comment is being negated. We're just not going to engage in the discourse on Facebook.
Okay.
Okay, moving on, we have tabled business. Ordinance number 1-2023, providing for an amendment to the Winslow zoning map to rezone a portion of the Conservation District to the abutting rural district. The portion is described as all properties abutting the south side of China Road from a point 1,285 feet east of Rainbow Lane to a point 481 feet northwest of Bellows Stream, which includes tax map 5, lots 39, 39A, 40, 41, 41-001, 41-002, 41-003, 41F, and 41B.
So moved.
Second. We gotta have a motion to take that off the table first.
Yeah, this is the one that you,
I'd like to make a motion to leave it on the table. To leave it table.
You don't need a motion for that?
No, okay.
Just a second, Peter, just a little discussion. The second one, if we take this off the table, the second one is coming up about the stores. Can we take those both at the same time? So take it off the table, and we can vote the first one down and vote for the second one, and get rid of it tonight, on the tabled one.
I'd rather not get rid of the tabled one tonight. If it can stay there, I want it to stay there for a little bit longer.
Okay?
Is there any problem with that, Bill? Can we leave that
No,
table?
that's council prerogative.
No,
Okay.
we can leave it forever.
It's in a postponed status, and
I'd like to
unless you
leave it-
take action, it remains there.
Do you want me to explain why, or?
Yes, I would.
Okay,
I would.
well, I'd like to hear from Mr. Flint as far as going forward, if this verbiage we have changed in the zone is gonna permit him to do as he needs to do to move forward, and we can get taxable property out of that project. If just changing this wording makes it difficult for him to do his project, this one we can pull off the table, rediscuss it. It's there. I look at it as an insurance policy for this project. Obviously, we'd have to go
Well,
back.
we can wait to hear from Mr. Lynn, I guess. And depends on his
Do
answer.
do you know now?
Not
Not 100% sure, but-
After he speaks, Peter.
From what I've been told, then yes. I just needed it to say stores.
What's that?
As far as I know, I'm good as long as it says stores.
Okay. Are you comfortable with us taking this off the table and voting it down?
That's the first one that was gonna rezone it to
Yeah.
rural.
I mean, I'd rather leave it, just in case, because things have changed since the beginning.
What will it hurt to leave it for a month?
That's,
Nothing.
What do you think, Ray?
Nothing. It wouldn't hurt anything to keep it table.
That's my thought process.
That's-
I'm just looking to
I'm more
protect
comfortable
the
leaving it
developer.
as insurance.
Okay.
Okay, if I did make a motion to take it off the table, I remove that motion.
Okay.
So there's a motion to leave,
We're gonna leave it on,
Leave
we're gonna
it.
leave it
We
alone.
don't need a
There's
motion.
no motion.
Okay,
No
sorry.
motion, no nothing, leave it on the table.
just leaving it there,
Yep.
doing nothing.
Yeah.
Now, old business.
Okay, old business. Ordinance number 3-2023, providing for an amendment to Chapter 164 of the Town Code, medical marijuana, to adjust fees and allow adult-use recreational marijuana in the town of Winslow, and rename the ordinance, quote-unquote, Town of Winslow Marijuana Ordinance by deleting the strike-through text and adding the underlined text per the attached copy.
Don't move.
Second.
Discussion? There being none?
Dale Macklin,
Yes.
Jerry Guerian,
Yeah.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Peter Drucker.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Good, yeah, okay.
Okay, so I just need to reread this last ordinance. You'll get it right this time. Ordinance number 4-2023, per 300, chapter 1 of the town code to allow adult use recreational marijuana facilities as a principal use in the industrial district by deleting the strike-through text per attached copy.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? Skip.
I just wanted to point out for everyone's, there's a lot of people who haven't been to the other meetings. When we do these ordinances, we start with a public hearing, so the public hearing for these was held in June, that was referred back to the planning board to debate. The planning board then has their discussion as to whether they believe this should be something that's forwarded or not, and then it comes back to the council to have a first vote and then a second vote. So the first vote on these was held in July. A lot of discussion. We've already discussed it 3 times at this point, so if people have questions or concerns about it, those should be raised, but at the council level, it's been discussed quite a few times already at the meetings.
Yeah, and if I might add, if we have any questions, we talk to Erica, we talk to a whole bunch of people in between the meetings to make sure that we have any questions that we have. So it looks like it might be a rubber stamp, but really the work that goes on behind the scenes to understand these ordinances and what they have an effect on the town of Winslow and the Winslow residents is at least I can only speak for myself, is thoroughly vetted.
All set? All set, Ray?
Roll
Okay.
call vote. Dale Macklin.
Yes?
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drappa.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Ordinance number 5-2023, providing for an amendment to section 300-45 D2 of the town code to allow adult use recreational marijuana facilities as a conditional use in the mixed use district by deleting the strike-through text and adding the underlined text per the attached copy.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, go ahead.
Dale Macklin.
Yes?
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Peter Drappa.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
You know, I also want to thank the planning board for their thorough work they've done on this, like Gary and the planning board in itself.
Ordinance number 6, providing for an amendment to section 300-50C-.2 of the town code to allow marijuana cultivation facilities as a conditional use in the conservation district by adding the underlined text per the attached copy.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Nope.
Dale Macklin.
Yes?
Jerry Query.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Ordinance number 7-2023, providing for an amendment to section 300-47C3 of the town code to allow adult use recreational marijuana cultivation facilities as a conditional use in the rural district by adding the underlined text per the attached copy.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Dale Macklin.
Yes?
Jerry Quinn.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drappo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Order number 27-2023, providing for the abatement of real estate taxes on accounts that have been deemed uncollectible, or the tax collector has determined that the collection costs would be greater than the tax collected.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? No?
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapko.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Order number 28-2023, providing for the authorization for the town manager to sign the attached dispatch service agreement with the city of Waterville for a one-year term.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Could you just explain a little bit how we got to this point? I know it's a long, lengthy, but
Sure. So, any town that runs emergency services for ambulance needs to be contracted with what's called a PSAP. We were contracted with Somerset County. In January, Somerset County made the announcement that they were going to drop all non-Somerset clients. We're in that boat. Oakland was in that boat. So we really didn't know what we were going to be doing because Kennebec County is full. They didn't have room for us. For instance, we thought maybe Ellsworth could take us. They're actually sending their PSAP calls all the way up to Aroostook. So not a whole lot of options. Waterville chose to get recertified as a PSAP. That they had to go through a legislative process to do that. And now that they have done that, they can act as our PSAP again. We were already contracted to Waterville for our regular dispatch services and Somerset for our PSAP services. So Somerset's gone, and now Waterville has taken over both regular dispatch and PSAP. They charge us a per capita fee, which Somerset did something similar as well. So our overall budget line is more money to Waterville than it was before, and it is up over last year as well. The grand total for both fire and police is 133-ish per year at this point, but we don't really have anywhere else to go with our services, at least not any more economically than what we're getting with Waterville.
Any questions? Okay.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapko.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Order number 29-2023, providing for authorization for the town manager to sign an amendment to the contract for engineering services for the Chaffee Brook Pump Station project with Wright Pierce per the attached document.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
This is not an increase, this is what we had discussed last meeting, or is this?
Yeah,
This
this
is-
is the second reading.
It's a
This is
second
the second
reading.
reading,
It
okay.
is a significant increase to the engineering contract, however, because prior, we had only had our design services on that contract. This puts all of our construction engineering on that contract. It's part of the full 6.8 million that we're asking for Chaffee Brook. So that number doesn't change, but this is an increase to this particular contract.
And really quickly, the 6.8 million, it's not just river crossings, right? It's an upgrade to.
No, that's the entire project,
Right.
less the, the entire project is $8 million for both the river crossing and the pump station
Right.
upgrades to the building and the generators and all of that that's in there. The grand total of the project is $8 million. We
Good.
have $1 million in the congressional earmark, and we have a $200,000 grant from DEP.
All I want to do is make the point that it's just not a river crossing, there's substantial
Correct.
pump station increase, upgrades to this facility, so.
Yes, the pump station portion of the project, which we're calling Phase 2, is actually quite a bit more money than Phase 1, which is the river crossing.
All set, Ray?
Yes.
Anybody else?
Okay. Dale Macklin.
Yes?
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, on to new business. Ordinance number 2-2023, an ordinance providing for an amendment to section 300-50C2 of the Town Code to modify the conditional use of small, quote-unquote, small store to, quote-unquote, small stores by adding the underlined text per the attached copy.
So move.
Second.
Discussion?
Is there anybody here from the Patty's Pond Association that's been here in the past? Well,
Don't see any of
okay.
them here.
Yeah.
George, did you want to say anything that you haven't already said? Or?
The last meeting, couple of meetings I came to, people from the Patty's Pond Committee were okay with it.
And right now, it's okay with you that you feel you can do your development with
Yes.
this change?
Yes.
And it's my understanding the Patty's Pond Association people agree.
That's what I have heard as well.
No, it's, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, thank
Oh,
you.
oh, Erica, I'm sorry.
Just to add to that, they did, Brad Whitaker and Larry Fleury attended the planning board meeting when we discussed this change. They both stood up in favor of this change, seeing it as a good compromise, understanding that China Road is a major thoroughfare, which probably will be developed in the future, but this gives them the best opportunity to make sure that we're also protecting the environmental issues that we have in the conservation district. So they came out in favor of this as a compromise measure.
Okay. Anyone else? Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Is there a need to wait a second?
You can't.
Can't.
It's an ordinance.
Okay,
Orders you can, but not ordinances.
I'm learning that.
Okay, order number 31-2023, an order authorizing the town manager to renew the contract between the town and the Waterville Area Humane Society in the amount of $15,008.62 annually, commencing July 1st, 2023, per the attached agreement.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Eric, could you just explain how that works?
So every town is required to partner with a humane society or shelter to take strays or pets. We've been working with the Waterview Humane Society for quite some time. 2 years ago, we did look into going up to Skowhegan, but with the additional travel time, it was not working out to be more economical. They charge us quarterly, so right now, in the absence of this, they did not send us this contract for budget time. We actually had to ask them, we had to reach out to get them to send this. So we are behind on getting this agreement in place, but I don't believe we need to waive a second reading on it because the next bill isn't due until October. So we've got time to take our time with the 2 readings and move forward. The next closest shelter would be in Augusta, so again, travel time, we want to have something close so that we're not dedicating an officer to go too far out of the area to take care of these animals and get them placed in a shelter.
Thank you.
I don't think it would behoove us to try to deal with Augusta or Skowhegan anyway. I mean, wouldn't we want to support our local humane society?
I would think so, but we had looked at it as just purely a cost savings measure.
Okay.
The cost was slightly less, but again, once you added in travel time and convenience factors, it really wasn't worth it.
Okay, okay.
Versus 10 minutes.
All right. Any more discussion?
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Aquarian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drappa?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Okay, order number 32-2023, amending order number 24-2023, authorization for the town manager to appropriate excess revenues and transfer remaining expenditure budgets to cover unanticipated fiscal year 23 expenditures and the detailed list attached.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
If I may, through the town council.
Yeah.
I know this is not adding any expense to the original budget that we had with these excesses, but some of the excesses in certain departments are very excessive. Either they did a very poor job at preparing their budgets, but they're going over tremendously. And I think next budget season, and there has to be some ramifications for going over budget for some of these departments so much. And I think at next budget, we're going to remember the department, and that I think we need to have a really realistic department and some really hard conversation, which I know, Erica, that you will have. And I have all the faith in you and but to approve this budget and to come back and see some of these overruns, it's like we're in areas where we were basically looked at and guaranteed we wouldn't have this type of overruns. And so that's all the comment I have on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Erica.
So just the major overruns primarily are in your fire department. There is some things that we had to do. We didn't have any choice. So when we hired new employees, we have to outfit them. However, when we budgeted for the new personnel, which council granted, we did not also budget for the equipment. And I take some of the blame on that because I didn't understand what we were missing and what we would have to buy. But I do depend on my department heads to guide me that way. The good news in the fire department is that we did have a considerable amount of revenue in excess of what we had budgeted from the ambulance. So it does offset. The overages that you're seeing in medical supplies, that's due to the increased transports, which is also why we have the increased revenue. We do have some fairly significant overruns in per diem help, but that's offset by the short, where we didn't spend in our regular salaries, and that was partly due to having some vacancies. So some of those things can't be planned for. We also had a major overrun in audit, and we had a major overrun in legal. Those, again, we try to have the best information we can at the beginning of the year. We did have an investigation done at the end of last year. That pretty much is the thing that put us over in legal. But no, you are correct. These discussions have actually been ongoing. To me, part of the problem is that I have to see anything that's over the amount of 2,000. But the way that our financial system has worked out, I don't see those till after the money's spent, and then I'm signing off on them. And the department heads who are in this room can probably attest to the number of times I've complained about that in department head meetings. I want to see everything that's a $2,000 or over bill before it's spent so that I know it's coming. There are some that don't make sense. For instance, if we're using salt in the winter and we run out of salt, we have to buy salt. I can't wait for Paul to come to me and say, can you increase my budget? We have to get that done. That's kind of a non-starter. The bills that we get from our ongoing projects, those are usually going to be large. When it comes to the bills that we get from the engineers and from the contractors, but we know we're within the confines of a contract that we have issued. So those are kind of an exception. But the rest of the stuff, we really need to be looking at before we spend the money. And we have some new department heads this year. It's a learning curve. Again, they have to be open to the coaching and the guidance as to how we manage our budgets. The good news that I can give you is originally when I asked you for monies to cover these items, we were taking it from fund balance because I originally asked for these monies in May. And the reason I'm not just letting it flow through till audit is because it doesn't look good on our audit when we have these large variances and we haven't done anything to proactively address them. Okay? So before audit comes in, I'm addressing where we do have variances, and luckily at this point, now that the books aren't closed, but we've got all the revenues that we're going to get coming in, so we know where we stand, and I can say with good confidence that these revenues exist to be appropriated. There are also 2 items in there that council did approve ahead of time. One was the $112,000 to pay for the plow truck that was supposed to have arrived in FY '24, but that came in early. We discussed that during the budget cycle, and you all had instructed me to take that from fund balance rather than waiting to put it into capital for the next year, and that was to decrease the budget increase that we were looking for in FY '24. And the other one was the salt shed door at $15,000. So that one had to be replaced, but it was one we pulled out of capital and said we can pre-fund that with fund balance out of FY '23. So it's a combination of all those things. Again, we could just let it ride and let audit sort it out at the end, but that really doesn't look like solid financial management.
And one of my points is the transparency is here. We
Right.
can't, at least we know what we did and we can address it at the next budget season. And it wasn't a reflection of department heads. We have to do sometimes things we have to do, and there's no choices that we have.
Right. No, there were some problems this year, for sure, and we've been addressing those as we go along.
Going forward, do we see one of the biggest expenses here is overtime in the fire department. And I'm not in favor of taking revenue from ambulance. I mean, we were gonna put that in the general fund and work with it elsewhere. We have it, okay, it's gonna bail us out. But are we gonna address this overtime issue going forward? Lenny, are you gonna get your finger on that?
Yes. I'm going to continue to talk with the captains as I learn the procedures, and I've asked them a couple times about some of the overtime that was quite a bit, and I'm still learning it because it's different in police work than fire work because you're working a 24-hour day versus a 10-hour day, but I am learning it, and I've brought some of my concerns to the town manager.
Okay.
But I want to take time to look into it and get both sides of the story so I don't have to jump to conclusions and get a real fair, accurate assessment of what's going on. But
Okay.
the town manager is aware of my concerns.
Well, you just took over this whole thing, so I just, my suggestion is let's take a hard look at this overtime because it's out of control. And I agree with Ray. I mean, they came to us with a request which we granted. But, the original for adding another shift to 4 more people was that during vacations and during sick time and what have you, they could maintain a working staff of 3 people. Well, I'm being told they're maintaining a working staff of 4 all the time, and the overtime's killing us. So, again, I'm just suggesting that we all, and by the sounds of it, you guys are on this, but I agree with Ray 100%. This has got to be dealt with.
But we were sold, and right or wrong, we were saying if we went to 4 people, we were going to achieve savings on the overtime budget. That was part of my justification for going to 4 people. That it just ain't so, man. That it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
We almost doubled I don't want to say a value, but that overtime has increased exponentially to some extent.
Right.
No.
Whoops, go ahead.
If I could.
Sorry.
It didn't increase exponentially over the prior year. What we did was we cut it in order to add the new people. But you are correct. We cut it because we were told that being at full staff, that we could expect our overtime and our per diem line items to decrease. And that didn't happen. Now, we did have some of our brand-new hires leave within a couple of months. We had 2 of them that left. So we did have some vacancy in there, but that is not, that's not.
Exponential was a very bad term to use. I apologize for that.
No, no, I expect us to answer for it. We still shouldn't be using as much overtime as we're using, even when we're down. I mean, we did have one captain that was off on work comp for an extended period of time. We've got another person off on work comp right now. So we have had injuries and things that have to be covered, but you are correct in saying that we have, rather than try to run with 3, we're saying we have to have 4, so we're going to backfill all of those shifts. Now, there is a risk at running with 3, and that's that if we have a call come in while a crew of 2 is already out, we're not going to be able to address it. So there's a trade-off there.
Mutual aid.
Correct. So it just means
That's
that we'll
what was
probably
sold
have...
to us, and that's what was
Right.
told to us.
Agreed. I just want to make clear that you do have you have a price to pay in terms of, if we're relying on mutual aid at that point, it's longer response times, it depends on who isn't addressing their own calls right at the same time. So I understand why our deputy fire chief wanted to continue to send these, to keep these shifts filled. I understand the why behind it, because best practices, we've got 4 people there, but at the same time, we can't always run best practice when we have limited financial resources.
If I may too, is that, my understanding of the situation too is that because of the employment, the workforce, problems of getting qualified, either paramedics or advanced EMTs or firefighters, we have hired some people without any qualifications and training them on the job. If they're one of the 3, you need it in some circumstances. That person is pretty well, until he's trained, pretty well useless at that point in time. So if he's one of the 3, you're going to need to, you need to get another 3rd in there at certain occasions, and I'm sensitive to that fact. And I don't want to get into, I'm not getting into the nitty-gritty of how decisions are made, but just that the overtime. My own concern, the council's primary concern is budgetary concerns. When I see an overrun like what has been happening, those are my concerns, budgetary, and not to interfere in the day-to-day operations of the fire department.
And then my concerns too, I think if you ask any of the people that work with me, the 2 things I ask on a daily basis is, what's the status of personnel? Is anybody hurt? What's the attitude going on? And then I always talk about money. So I am now getting all the bills routed to me. I'm watching the schedule, and like I said, it's a learning. On the fire side, I'm learning. And it's going to take a little while longer, and I'm going to need the help of the captains and deputy chief to figure it out totally.
The bottom line is the safety of the people in the town of Winslow is paramount, even with budgetary concerns. It's just my concern because I was elected for budgetary reasons,
Right.
and that's what the council does. So
Yeah.
I expressed my concern, and you, okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
You all set, Ray?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Go ahead.
Just to briefly here, Peter, I've been on the council for 2 budgets now. Last year's budget was nowhere near these overruns. This budget is. And I was on those budget hearings when we were told certain things by a former chief who sold us on some things. Well, there were some misstatements made back then. I'll just say that. Then he left. We were out without a fire chief from there until now Lenny's officially hired. I have the utmost confidence that with Lenny doing the fire department budget now, he is going to educate himself on the needs of the fire department. And Ray will work from the perspective that safety in this town comes first. Yes, it does. But at the same time, we have to take into consideration the comments made tonight about keeping our mill rate down. We have to. And overruns like this don't help that at all. Now, I'm not saying in the next budget we can get rid of all of these overruns, because some of this might have to go into the budget. But I think we can go a long ways to correcting some of those. Now that we have this system in place, and confident people and other department heads that are now paying more attention to this. This is basically only my 2nd budget. Jeff's been around a while, Ray's been around a while, Rocky, your 3rd budget, Peter's 3rd budget, Erica's 3rd budget. That's it, and we're dealing with a $30 million budget. First couple of years, did we miss some things? Probably we did. But I don't think we're going to be missing many more in the future, now that we've been through enough budgets. But we'll recognize that come next budget season, I'm sure. And both to protect the taxpayers and the safety of people in this town and getting rid of these overruns. Because they're big time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Sorry. I do want to point out, other than the 112 for the plow truck and the 15 for the salt shed door, the rest of those overruns were covered by moving monies where we had places where we didn't come up to what we had planned spending. So there were a lot of accounts that were actually under budget at year end.
That's
And
good.
if you look at your FY '23 budget report, which you got in your packets and which is online, the overages and expenditures are offset completely by the excess revenue that we got. So, yes, we did have overruns, but overall, the grand total ball of the monies that we had to support the local budget, we made it, we just didn't do it in all the right places.
We didn't have to raise taxes because of this overrun.
Correct.
And we did not have to take money out of the fund balance
okay.
for these overruns.
But
that extra money could have gone back into the
Yeah,
general
correct.
fund, rather than paying for over.
we could have used that money to pay down more on Chafee Brook, to pay down more on monies we have to borrow.
That's right.
That's my point. I don't miss a dollar. Trust me on this. And there's a lot of money here being spent that didn't need to be spent. We're beating a dead horse at this point. Let's go
Yeah,
on.
let's move on.
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapko.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Order number 33-2023, authorization for the Public Works Director to accept a proposal from Peachy Builders to secure the windows and doors at the old Winslow Junior High building. The total estimated cost is $16,940.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Yep. Through the chair. To Paul. Were there others that bid on this?
No, I didn't go out to bid. I was asked to find a quote, and I talked to the contractor that was working for us at Johnny's. This time of the year, you're not gonna find contractors that are gonna take on any work. So it was a discussion with the current contractor that we employ. He's got the time to do it. They're between projects. It's fairly time sensitive. It's not something my guys can do. So it's your wish if this is, if you wanna go out to bids and you're not gonna secure it this fall.
I have one question for you, Paul. The OSB they're gonna use,
Yes,
are they gonna seal that in any nature, or are they just gonna let
probably
it?
not.
Probably not.
And they're not doing the upstairs windows. It's just strictly ground level where people can get into. Second story is gonna stay as it is.
And doing that, Paul, will allow us to cut off everything to that building now.
That's
correct,
correct.
Aaron?
That's correct.
All lights, electricities and everything, so we're paying this out, yes. But I forget, what we paid for the upkeep last year?
The electricity is about $1,200 a month. The water is cut off, so that bill is gone. The other thing that we were paying for, and the crazy thing was that $1,200 a month was really only if someone needed to turn the lights on, if they went into the building, which happens rarely, they could turn on the lights, and it was paying for the security system, which now doesn't function at all. We would have to pay considerable money to get that working again. So right now, we're not paying for the security system because it's broke, but we are still paying for the electricity, so that's $1,200 a month.
And once this is done, then we don't have those expenses.
We can completely cut off the utilities.
In
That'll
the
be
long run, save money.
probably a wash in the first year.
We'll wash in the first year.
Yep.
I mean, I can't promise that the boarding up is gonna last 4, 5, 6 years before the weather gets to it.
Well, the building will be down before then, Paul.
OSB is supposedly waterproof, so, okay. Thank you,
Like I
Paul.
say, they weren't looking to put sheet metal and whatever to make something pretty. It's just make it secure.
Okay. Anybody else? Thank you.
So if possible, I would request we waive the second reading if we can, to get these guys out here sooner than later.
Well, let's take the first reading first.
I realize that. While I'm still standing here.
How's that?
Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Motion to waive the second reading.
Second.
Discussion.
Can't write that fast. Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to waive the second reading. Okay. Order number 34-2023. An order providing for authorization for the town manager to sign the attached employment agreement with Leonard McDade, hereinafter called the Director, to begin performing the services of the Public Safety Director.
So move.
Second.
Discussion. Public Safety Director, sir. Are you okay with this contract?
Yes, I am.
Town Manager, ma'am, are you okay with this contract?
Yes, I am.
I'm good.
And reading this over real quick, Lenny and Erica, there isn't a lot of basic changes in this from the contract you had as police chief, outside of extending your job description to public safety,
Correct.
with a little small raise.
Correct.
Any more discussion? Go ahead.
Okay, Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
No.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1.
I don't think you need me here anymore.
I don't think,
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
no.
So let me pass this on.
Yeah.
Let this, to Erica.
Okay.
She desires that.
Thank you.
What's that?
Really, you're not having fun? Thanks, Bill.
Is there any benefit to foregoing the second reading?
On Len's contract?
Yeah.
Erica, I don't know. Do you want to forego the second reading?
I mean, the contract doesn't change what we were paying him as interim, so that's,
Do you want to forego the second?
Well, the contract's retroactive back to July.
it is, but we've been paying that rate as the interim public safety director the entire time. And the reason for the retroactivity is that he's been in the interim position the entire time. So he's already doing the job.
If I might, it serves no really purpose at this point. There's no money involved, no anything involved. I think it's a good idea just to wait a month and then do the contract.
Resolution number 15-2023, pole location permit, Essential Main Power Company and Consolidated Communications of Northern New England Company, LLC, work order 801-000540942.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Nope.
Okay, Dale Macklin.
Yes.
Jerry Querian.
Yes.
Ray Karen.
Yes.
Joseph Gravel.
Yes.
Jeff West.
Yes.
Lee Trahan.
Yes.
And Peter Drapo.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say one thing.
Go ahead.
Just to the people out there, we've gone through basically the items on the agenda outside for discussion. Last month, I guess it started last month, Erica, or the month before, this whole packet we get on, usually on Thursdays. There's a lot of stuff in here that you didn't get before. This is all online now. You can get everything. When we refer to contracts, this contract, or the other ones we've had tonight, that contract is in here. Financial information is in here. Everything that we know coming into this meeting is in here. That is now online. You can get it all yourself. All the managers' reports, everything is now on the town website, if you're interested in reading 183 pages.
Both the agenda and minutes, and just up on the screen, this is what the website looks like, but you can get to it directly from when you go to the agenda and minutes for council meetings. It's also on, there's a link to it when you go to the calendar for the agendas. And anything where you see blue in here, those are links now. So if you wanted to look at, for instance, my report, you click on it, and up it comes. You can download these, you can print them off, you can save them, or you can just view them. So it's all out there now. This is it's called Town Cloud System. It costs us about $35 a month. I think it's well worth it to make sure that all the documents are out there for everybody to be able to access.
But this is the information that we have coming in, and we go over it before, of course, so when it seems like we go through things quick, that's because we read all this stuff. Hopefully, anyway, maybe sometimes not all of it, but for the most part, so we know what's what.
All good?
All good?
Next.
We're on to discussion items.
Yep, hold on.
Oh, sorry, are we allowed any last comments before we adjourn?
We're done with the public comment, but do you have a question?
No question.
So discussion items, there's a parking ban, a request for parking ban on the south side of Stobie Street from Benton Avenue to Boston Avenue.
Yeah, can somebody explain? Okay, here
Yeah.
comes Paul.
I brought that up. I was requested by one of the officers in PD, one of the sergeants. If you've noticed Stobie Street, we tend to have parking on both sides of the road. The road's not super wide. Most of the rescue services go up Stobie Street, so sometimes it can be a challenge negotiating it. So it was asked if we could propose, one side parking and ban the other side. I think I would allow parking on the sidewalk side because the Benton Avenue to Boston Avenue is probably the route that most of the rescue services take, so it'd be good that side would be open. Right now, you have parking on both sides. There's kind of a slalom course going up through there.
Who asked for this, Paul?
One of the sergeants from the police
Okay.
department. I had noticed it over in the past as well. I travel that road all the time, and it can be a little bit of a challenge.
Okay.
So since one of the officers made that request, I figured somebody else is noticing it besides myself, so I brought it up as a discussion item. If you guys agree, then we could look to draft an ordinance to ban parking and have a public hearing.
So if somebody does park in both sides of the street, how do you rectify it?
Right now, there's no rectifying it. There's no parking ban on either side, so.
But there is one, do you tow, do you have a?
If there is one, then you can tow them, you can ticket them. I mean, we have the same thing on Boston and North Grand, I believe. We have no parking on one side of the street, on the certain times of the year, I believe. I think it's only in the daytime. I'd have to go back and look at the signs, but.
Usually what we try to do when the parking ban comes up, just like we do here, we try to knock what people doing one the first time. And the second time we'll give it a ticket, the third time we'll tow, or if it's actually snowing. And then we try to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Especially when they're going up with one of the engines or the ladder, I can imagine. And they always end up parking where in the curvy part of the street, which is even worse. So, it's up to you guys. I brought it up as a discussion item, if you guys want to entertain it.
12 years ago, I had requested no parking on Stobie Street. So it's not something new. It was real, it's as narrow as it is today, and dangerous. And I would go along with the PD and Paul.
That's why I brought it up for discussion item. You guys can decide if you want to move forward, and we'll craft an
Eric,
craft
what do
an
we
ordinance.
need next meeting for?
We would have to draft an ordinance to eliminate parking on one side of the street, and of course, that means public hearing, and then 2 votes.
Why don't we do it? I mean,
Yeah.
at least we can discuss it.
Yeah, I have no problem with what you guys want. I mean, who else are we going to listen to?
No, I mean, Rocky and I can attest to that with an engine going through there.
Yeah.
It's tight.
It's tight sometimes with the pickup truck, because that's right across from the town office, and you go, I mean, they have 10 times a week, and even with a vehicle sometime, the way they park.
Even Benton Avenue during a football game,
Yeah.
even though there's no parking signs,
Right.
when that truck out of the fire station is an issue.
Would we notify the people on Stobie Street there's a public hearing in?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I need to know.
And it's just a short section from Benton Ave to Boston. That's usually the area. Because usually all the rescue trucks go up there, take Boston, they head out towards Clinton, and then go from there. But like I say, Rocky knows the situation. You've been up there many times.
Oh, yeah.
So
Okay,
that's all I had.
thank you.
And last but not least, the municipal facilities study.
So that was mine. Attached to your agendas, we have an additional proposal from the engineering firm, Haley Ward. One of the things we wanted to know was, are we better off building new down the road or upgrading, renovating what we have now? Their current study that they're conducting will tell us that they believe that we should do it, but because they didn't actually study the existing facility, it's just their opinion of whether we're better off going one way or the other. This amendment would have them do an actual full study on the existing building and what it could be renovated for and how much more time we can get out of it. But it does require them doing a lot more engineering work than we had originally contracted. The price is $33,000, which would be split 3 ways between police, fire, and administration. But I wanted to get council's opinion on that before I decided to put it on as an order. So I guess I kind of need to get your thoughts.
Well, I don't think we would be doing our due diligence if we don't look into rehabbing the old building, period. I thought that was part of their original quote.
Well, apparently it wasn't, and it wasn't part of the other ones either. I addressed that as well.
Yeah, we were on the same page, I thought.
We were.
Yeah.
We were.
Well, I'd put the heat to them and say, look, we were of the opinion, and you kind of indicated you were going to do that, other than just looking at it and say, yeah, it's an old building. We know that.
Well, and I mean, that's a little bit of an oversimplification, but they weren't doing any in-depth engineering study,
Well,
so,
I would,
yeah.
we have to do it. But I would go to them and say, look, see if you can cut us a better price, whereas this was supposed to have been done in the original price. I mean, go ahead, what do you guys think? I agree.
I say do it, and Doris, this goes to the question you asked while you were up there about our facilities. About our facilities. At some point in time, the current building that we have is not in very good shape. We're either gonna renovate the existing or build new. Now, we can wait until the very last minute and get this stuff done, and then it's gonna be too late. Or we can start this planning now. And that's what this is for, to get a thing on.
Oh, okay.
But that's the reason to do this is to get both options available for some time down the road and get it started now. It doesn't mean we're gonna rebuild or renovate now.
Yeah, you spent a lot of money on that parking lot. $175,000 for a new parking lot is what I was told. But the engineers were across the street surveying that property while that new parking lot was being dug up.
That I don't know.
No, we spent about 120, which was the original estimate that we had gotten before. We did a lot of our own earthwork, tried to minimize it wherever we could.
And it was CARS money.
Yeah,
Didn't come out of the
we
budget.
we used ARPA for the vast majority of it. We used $100,000 in ARPA money.
Yeah, it didn't come out of the town budget.
So,
Anyway, I think that we have to do our due diligence and look into that old building.
No question, if I may through the chair, no question that we need. You know, you said earlier, Peter, that we have a 5-year, we wouldn't start construction in 5 years. Well, a new facility, or it's 5 years down the road.
At least minimum.
The minimum 5 years down the road. You know, this whole fire department thing and this whole municipal study thing came about because the fire department currently is in what I would call, and maybe Rocky and Jeff could elaborate, but in my opinion, it's inadequate facility for the amount of people we have and the training needs of the department. If we're saying now we're kicking that, we're not doing anything for 5 years, I believe that there are immediate needs of the fire department that need to be addressed in that facility at the current time. And that's just, again, just my opinion, and I'd be...
That's got nothing to do with this. I agree with you. At our last budget session, we talked about that, and I emphasized that next year we've got to spend a substantial amount of money to get the fire department, as we know it, up to speed as far as the living quarters and what have you. It's dismal. Yes, I agree with you.
Okay.
That's got nothing to do with
That's all I
this.
need to know.
What this is to do engineering on that facility to see how we can expand it, how we can make it work for our future for the next 50 years.
And how are we going to address the immediate needs? How are we going to...
We were going to discuss that at this coming year's budget session.
That's budget sessions this year.
But before we get to the budget season, we're going to need some figures as to what has to be done and what has to, before we get to the budget.
The big question when it comes to the long-term money, we know we have to do something with the fire department, and that's going to have to be done sooner than 5 years. So, is it more cost-effective to dump, because we're not talking a couple $100,000 to rehab the fire department. The estimate we got 3 years ago, before I even got here, was 1.3 million.
Yeah, but that was not a rehab just for the living quarters. And that was
No,
right.
but your problem is not just the living
No,
quarters.
no, but that was shot from the hip too, Erica.
No,
There's
there was
no
an
engineering,
actual-
there's no, I've got it. There's no engineering behind that figure. That 1.9, if they had pulled the trigger on it, would have probably been closer to 4 or 5 million.
So,
That wasn't-
again, though, the idea, and I know nobody likes to talk about money, but here's what I need everybody to be thinking about. The longer we wait to do something, the more it costs, okay? We've seen that with every major infrastructure project we have. So, one thing they will tell us is, without spending the extra money, and I'm not saying we don't spend the extra money, because I think we need to get the full answer, but you need to figure out, is it more cost-effective to go ahead and take care of that fire department to delay a bigger expenditure later? Is that going to benefit long-term, not thinking this year or next, but long-term, what is your overall cost? And that's why we were hiring them to try and get down to this. Because a lot of times what we've been doing, and we talked about it again this year, do we delay Chaffee Brook because the bids came in so much higher? Well, next year they're going to be even higher than that. So the question becomes, when we know we've got major infrastructure things coming, how long do we delay just so that we can make sure that the tax rate stays flat? Keep in mind, too, facilities, that's not something you pay for out of pocket. That's going to be another bond.
Right, but my whole thought process on this project is Chaffee Brook, Sunset Heights, just those two items. Sunset Heights figure was last year at 15 million. By the time we pull the trigger on that, by the time that's finished, that's gonna come in at $25 million, I guarantee it. That's just inflate, that's the way things are going. That's the real world in construction. So 25 there, and I, I hate to say this, because everybody's gonna, Chaffee Brook right now is at what, 8.5?
8.
8? We'll be lucky to get that done for 10. Well, okay, I hope you're right. I just hope you're right. But that being said, we're looking at current pricing, we're looking at $25 million worth of bonding for the town, and to throw another 10 million on top of that, under 5 years for a new facility, we can't afford that. We cannot afford to spend that kind of money. So let's spend the money and do a survey or do the engineering on the existing facility And then at next year's budget, Erica, we will have at least an indication as to what it's going to cost to rehab what we have, and/or how much money do we have to throw at the fire department to at least get the living quarters, what you and I, or we all would consider livable. It's dismal in there right now. You go out back there, that's terrible.
One of our biggest problems is until we get the vehicles out of there, we don't have a wash bay. The mold comes back every year. That's
Well,
about a 17.
Then we abate the mold every year. I mean, again, we're not talking $1 million.
My job is to give you the full
No,
picture.
no.
That's all I'm trying to
Yeah,
do.
I mean, the
So-
mold abatement can be looked at as a, maintenance expense, but
You hear what I said, what you said? Okay.
So we'll, pretty much in agreement then, and we'll go with the 33 or whatever.
if you can knock them down a little bit, I mean, I'd put a little, but I know you will, give it to them. It's a
So will this-
negotiating.
Through the chair, will this study give us what Peter is asking for a temporary Band-Aid on the fire department also, or is this just gonna be?
No, I can ask them to do just that, and that will probably knock the cost down. This was a study on the entire facility that was going to determine, when you look at costs of rehabbing this facility overall versus building new, which again, we're not, one of the things we've been really clear on is that it has to be economic. They need to tell us too, on the rehab, how long is it going to extend the life of this building? Because if you spend $2 million less to rehab, but you only get 15 to 20 years out of it, when you could have spent, another $2 million and gotten a facility that's going to last you 60 years, everybody could vote on that, but it's long-term, not cost-effective. So that's what they were looking for us to tell us.
I think that's what we need to tell them. We don't want just a half-baked engineering
No.
done just to do the living quarter.
No, but-
Let's get the whole picture done. And at that point, we can probably decipher from that engineering, Rocky, and that presentation they give us as to what it would, at that point, we can ask them, okay, what would it cost to fix the back end of this building?
We need the whole thing to do the
Yeah.
whole current.
I understand that, I
Be
just
able to compare it with a new
don't have
facility.
another expense
Yeah.
down the road where we have
And
them
then-
there, is what I'm
I think an
saying.
engineer, Rocky, even if we get the full-blown one, can give a separate engineer, or even those engineers can give us an opinion on if we just do the living quarter.
You ask the engineer,
Today.
you ask the engineer to itemize each portion of the rebuild, so,
Yeah.
and see what it does, so that you break it down into either sections or whatever. It's not,
That way you get one expense.
I go along with the chairman.
Let's,
Need to do the whole thing.
let's do the whole thing, and then we can decipher, Erica, going forward. At least at that point, we can look at the people and say, just what you just said. Do we spend 8 million to rehab what we have and it's good for 20 years, or do we spend 10, 11, 12 million to put a new facility together that's gonna last another, the one we're in right now is what, 60, 70 years old?
65, yeah.
Okay, so, but we need that information to make I think a reasonable.
and the first step, you're gonna give us a price on the added engineering necessary at the
It's
next meeting.
$33,000.
33.
We budgeted for
Yeah, it's
that,
on-
didn't we?
It has
We
to be
have
a-
it in the capital budget right
Yeah.
now, but it means that we won't do the renovations that we were gonna do on the flooring and stuff and the paint. We just won't, not in the admin budget, because we'll need a third of that we'll need 11,000 to go towards this study, which is fine.
We can work through it.
But I think we need to address the mold issue though, because if you wait till you have to get it taken care of, then those people are exposed to that.
Yeah,
I think
we know it's
some
an
kind of-
annual
some
thing at
kind
this
of
point.
System that
I need
get the
to put a
moisture out of
report
there.
Together real soon on what you need for that building. Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Show of hands on motion to adjourn.
You guys want to adjourn, or do you want to order breakfast?
Jerry, you too?
That's right, that's right, that's right.
Motion
Forgot.
passes 7-0.